The morning air in Seattle held a chill that spoke of approaching winter, and John Peterson, bundled in his worn grey coat, felt its bite with a mix of familiarity and melancholy. Dawn still clung to the fringes of darkness, casting a bluish light over the city as he made his way down the cobblestone path to his wife's grave. Beside him, Luna trotted quietly, her golden fur illuminated softly under the morning sky. She was a Labrador, loyal and perceptive, with eyes that mirrored the pain she saw in her companion. "John," whispering, "almost there, girl." The gravel crunched underfoot as they reached the wrought iron gate of the cemetery. The stillness greeted them, profound and heavy, disturbed only by the faint rustle of leaves overhead. He let out a slow breath, feeling the familiar tightening in his chest. The stone before him bore Sarah's name, etched neatly, cold and unmoving. Memories rose like echoes, whispers of a past that still haunted him, laughter, a touch, the gradual forgetting, and then silence. Luna sat beside him, her gaze unwavering as if absorbing his sorrow. Her dark round eyes were pools of understanding. "John, you would have loved her, Luna. She always said dogs were angels in disguise." The dog tilted her head, a small, almost imperceptible whine escaping her throat. She leaned into his leg, grounding him in the present, the warmth of her body a quiet balm against the chill. Minutes passed, the silence filling with unspoken words until John exhaled a long, shaky breath. "John, come on girl, let's go for a walk." They headed down the winding path towards Seward Park, where the trees were beginning to shed their amber leaves, creating a patchwork of gold and red across the grass. The first rays of sunlight pushed through the canopy, and the lake at the park's edge glistened like molten silver. It was here, in the embrace of nature, that John felt most connected to Sarah's memory. It was also where he found the most solace. Luna's pace quickened, nose to the ground, ears pricked and alert. "John, what is it, Luna?" But Luna did not respond to his voice. Her body tensed, muscles coiled under her sleek coat, eyes locked onto the expanse of water ahead. In an instant, she bounded forward, paws hitting the earth with force as she raced to the lake's edge. "John!" shouting, "Luna!" The echo of her name was swallowed by the splashes as she leapt into the water. Panic surged through him. Luna was a strong swimmer, but her sudden determined plunge into the lake sent a shiver down his spine. He ran, breath catching in his throat as he followed her gaze and saw it. A small form, clinging desperately to a floating piece of wood, tiny hands white with cold. The child's eyes met his, wide and terrified, the innocence marred by raw fear. Time slowed, each heartbeat thudding painfully loud in John's ears. Luna was already halfway there, her strokes powerful, cutting through the current with purpose. The morning serenity shattered, replaced by urgency that pulsed like electricity. "John, hold on!" Even as he knew the words couldn't reach the child, Luna reached the boy first, jaws gentle yet unyielding as she gripped the fabric of his shirt. She turned, eyes filled with a fierce determination that spoke of her loyalty and instinct. John stumbled into the water, the icy cold seeping through his clothes and numbing his limbs. The shock made him gasp, but he pushed forward, arms outstretched as Luna brought the child within reach. "John, I've got you!" His hands found the boy, cold and shivering but alive. The small chest rose and fell with shallow, stuttering breaths, each one a tiny victory. John's vision blurred with the sting of water and emotion as he looked at Luna, who now swam tiredly to shore, her body quaking with exhaustion but eyes ever watchful. They reached the bank together, John collapsing onto the damp ground with the child cradled tightly in his arms. Luna lay beside them, sides heaving, a soft whimper breaking the tension of the moment. "John, it's okay, Luna." One hand resting on her wet fur for a brief moment, past and present melded, loss and salvation intertwined. And as the sun finally rose, casting its warm light over them, John knew that hope, fragile and persistent, had found him once more. The world around him seemed to blur, the muted hues of the park dissolving into the singular focus of a lifeless little body cradled in his trembling hands. Tom's hair, soaked and tangled, clung to his small ashen face. John's own breath was ragged, uneven as he forced his mind to steady, to push back the images of Sarah and her vacant gaze in those last days. This was different. It had to be. "John, "Breathe, Tom. Just breathe," John whispered, voice straining as if those words could spark life on their own. He tilted the child's chin gently, sealing his lips over Tom's tiny mouth and delivering a measured breath. His pulse thudded relentlessly in his ears, drowning out the sounds of distant shouts and approaching footsteps. He began chest compressions, counting with silent precision. Each push was met with resistance, the fragile ribs yielding under his hands, echoing the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears. The seconds stretched, each one biting into him, hollowing out the space between hope and despair. A sharp, wheezing gasp. Tom's chest jerked, and for a moment, John stilled, the world collapsing into that singular breath. Tom's eyes fluttered, a watery blue gaze lifting weakly, meeting John's with an innocence uncorrupted by the terror that had nearly taken him. Relief flooded John's veins, leaving him momentarily lightheaded. "John." "Thank God." His hand lingers on Tom's damp cheek. He turns slightly to glance at Luna, the Labrador, whose soaked fur clings to her lean body. She lays slumped on her side, chest rising and falling with heavy, exhausted breaths. John reaches out, fingers brushing over her ear. "John, you did good, girl." His voice cracks. Luna's eyes, dark pools of exhaustion and unwavering loyalty, meet his. She offers a feeble wag of her tail, as if to reassure him that her mission was complete. The sudden roar of tires on gravel shatters the fragile silence. Blue and red lights cast fractured patterns across the lake's still surface. Officers emerge, their heavy boots pounding on the grass, radios sputtering. The scene, so intimate moments before, becomes charged with voices and movement. "Officer, who's in charge here?" An officer barks, his eyes scanning the chaotic tableau. Before John can respond, a woman's voice breaks through the roar. "Jennifer! Tom! My baby! Where's my Tom?" Jennifer stumbles forward, her face pale beneath strands of unkempt hair. Her eyes are wide, rimmed with panic and guilt, as they lock onto the boy cradled in John's arms. She drops to her knees beside him, sobbing, racking her body as she clutches Tom to her chest. "Jennifer, oh God, I thought." "John," he's breathing now. John's voice is low but firm, offering her a small anchor amidst the storm swirling around them. Jennifer's eyes, glassy with relief and regret, flicker up to meet his. A hint of recognition passes over her face before it crumples under a fresh wave of tears. "Second officer." "Ma'am." A second officer approaches, his tone firm but not unkind. The tension grows as he recognizes Jennifer, his expression hardening imperceptibly, the memory of the recent report coloring his eyes. "Second officer, we need to talk. This isn't the first time, is it? I recognize you, Jennifer Morrison. You left your son in the car last week." Jennifer holds her breath, her arms tightening around Tom as if she could shield him from the truth that weighed on them both. "Jennifer, I didn't mean to." Her voice is a choked apology, the words lost in the space between blame and plea. John shifts, eyes narrowing with quiet resolve. Luna, as if sensing the tremor in the air, raises her head, letting out a small whine that cuts through the din. "John, wait!" John steps forward, the weight of his own memories lending strength to his voice. "John, let's not jump to conclusions. She needs help, not punishment." He glances at Jennifer, whose tear-streaked face glistens in the cold light, and something unspoken passes between them, an understanding. The officer hesitates, then nods, his gaze softening slightly. The quiet hum of the hospital fills the sterile corridors, a muted backdrop to the symphony of controlled chaos that always thrived in its confines. John Peterson moves through the maze with practiced ease, Luna's golden fur brushing against his leg as she walks obediently beside him. The fluorescent lights cast a harsh, cold glow over the tiled floor, but the warmth of Luna's presence tempers the chill. "John, come on, girl." His voice is a musty echo of worry and fatigue. Luna's ears twitch at the sound, a subtle nod of understanding. They reach the room where Tom had been admitted, and through the glass, John sees the small boy lying motionless, wrapped in a blanket too big for his tiny frame. His chest rises and falls in shallow, erratic breaths. John steps into the room, his boots scuffing lightly against the linoleum. Jennifer's head snaps up, her eyes wide and filled with a blend of fear and recognition. The room holds its breath. "Jennifer, Mr. Peterson," she manages, her voice trembling. "Jennifer, they said Tom might be taken away." John looks down, unable to meet her eyes directly. The weight of his silence says more than words ever could. Instead, he glances at Luna, who had positioned herself by the bed, her eyes soft and watchful, the embodiment of quiet empathy. "John, I'm here for him," John says finally, each word thick with unsaid promises. Jennifer nods, swallowing hard as she struggles to maintain her composure. "Jennifer, he's all I have," she whispers, her voice breaking. "Jennifer. And now I can't even trust myself to keep him safe." Jennifer," John starts, hesitating as memories of Sarah's gradual descent surface unbidden. The forgotten names, the vacant stares, the fear she'd struggled to hide. He reaches out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Jennifer sits on the bed, holding Tom's hand. John stands nearby, looking concerned. A knock interrupts the moment, and a doctor steps in, clipboard clutched tightly in hand. He glances at the trio, eyes darting between Jennifer and Tom before settling on John. "Doctor, Mr. Peterson, I understand you were involved in the rescue. Thank you for that." The doctor turns to Jennifer, his expression softening with a tinge of pity. "Doctor, Miss Wright, we need to discuss your condition. The early stages of Alzheimer's require immediate attention. Tom's safety is our priority, and arrangements are being made for him to stay at a social care center temporarily." Jennifer's eyes widen, and she looks as if the floor has been swept from under her. She grips Tom's hand tighter, and he stirs, mumbling in his sleep. "Jennifer, no, please." Jennifer's fingers intertwine with Tom's, gripping as if she were holding on to life itself. Her auburn hair is disheveled, strands sticking to her damp forehead. Silent tears cascade down her pale cheeks, glistening in the harsh light. John's chest tightens as he watches her, a swirl of emotions rising like a wave threatening to drown him. It is as though Sarah's ghost hovers at the edge of his vision, her eyes hollowed by years of suffering, a reflection of the pain now painted on Jennifer's face. Luna, a dog, lets out a soft whine, her gaze shifting between Jennifer and John, as if sensing the desperation in the room. As John moves to step back, Luna's paw reaches out, touching his leg. The gesture is so deliberate, so full of silent meaning that John's heart stills. She looks up at him, eyes liquid and deep, imploring him to stay. He sighs, kneeling down and placing a hand on Luna's head. The warmth of her fur grounds him, anchoring him to the moment. The room seems to breathe again, filling with an unspoken understanding. The night wraps around John like an old, suffocating blanket, bringing with it the chill of memory. He sits in his armchair, eyes fixed on the flickering glow of the fireplace, as if it holds answers long buried. The crackling embers mirror the restless fire in his heart. Sarah's voice seems to whisper through the room, soft yet vivid, pulling him into the past. He can still picture her on their last autumn together, the sun painting her golden hair, the distant, unfocused look in her eyes as the disease slowly took hold. He shakes the memory away, but tonight it feels harder than usual. Luna shifts at his feet, the weight of her gaze pressing against him. The Labrador's dark, soulful eyes follow his every move as if sensing the storm within. She lets out a quiet whimper and nudges his leg, her muzzle warm and soft. "John, I know, girl," John murmurs, his voice catching in his throat. "John, it's time." Morning comes in a soft, muted light, casting long shadows across the polished floorboards of John's living room. He reaches for the phone with fingers that tremble, hesitating for just a moment before dialing the number he'd memorized overnight. The call is brief, marked by the clinical efficiency of the social worker on the other end. Social worker. They would allow it with regular check-ins. As he sets the phone down, a strange calm settles over him. For the first time in years, he feels a spark of purpose rekindled. Hours later, the sound of small, hesitant footsteps echoes through the hallway. Tom, with his unruly curls and wide, cautious eyes, stands clinging to a threadbare, stuffed rabbit. The boy's stare darts between John and the sun-dappled room. Luna's tail thumps gently against the floor as she pads over, her golden coat shimmering. She approaches Tom slowly, nose twitching in friendly curiosity. "John." "Hello, Tom," John says, keeping his voice steady, gentle. The boy's eyes flit up to meet his, then back to Luna. A tiny hand reaches out, tentative, brushing the soft fur of Luna's ear. "Luna," soft whimper. The bond of healing. It's a journey that begins in silence and grows in the quiet moments shared. It's the unspoken promises, the gentle touches, and the unwavering presence that forge the strongest connections. Luna responded with a soft nuzzle, the kind only she seemed to know how to give, an unspoken promise of safety. JN, softly, "See, she likes you." A small smile cracks the rigid lines of JN's face. Tom's lips twitch, a fleeting glimmer of a smile appearing before vanishing as quickly as it came. The first few days were marked by silences that stretched too long, broken only by the subtle sounds of the house adjusting to its new occupant. Tom sits by the window, eyes lost in the sway of the trees, while Luna curls beside him, a steadfast shadow. John watches from the kitchen, the smells of chamomile and fresh bread weaving into the fabric of their shared stillness. One afternoon, as the last light of day casts gold across the room, John finds Tom huddled in the corner, silent tears tracking down his face. Luna is already there, resting her chin on Tom's small knee. Without a word, John sits beside them, the quiet offering more comfort than any phrase could. JN whispering, "I miss her too." Tom looks up, eyes glistening, searching John's face for something unnameable. For the first time, he sees not the weary distance of a child alone, but a thread of recognition, a tentative bridge. The days morph into a rhythm, a dance of small rituals that start to knit them together. Tom's giggles, muffled and uncertain at first, grow louder as Luna leads him through games of chase in the garden. John finds himself laughing along, a sound so foreign it surprises him. The ghost of Sarah, ever present, feels lighter now, a reminder not of grief but of what was possible. In the evenings, after stories are read and Tom's breathing deepens into sleep, John stands in the doorway and watches him. Luna, already settled at the foot of Tom's bed, lifts her head, eyes reflecting the soft light of the moon. They share a look, an unspoken acknowledgement between them. John, barely a whisper, says, "Thank you, girl." Luna's tail taps once against the blanket, a silent reply. Day by day, the house creaks under the weight of the evening wind, its old wooden frames murmuring in response as if whispering secrets between walls. Golden light from the setting sun filters through the large window, casting elongated, honeyed shadows across the living room. John watches Tom's small frame as he sits cross-legged on the worn rug, Luna nestled close beside him, her warm amber eyes scanning the boy's every movement. Tom, reading a picture book, says, "Read this one, Luna." Luna's tail thumps twice against the floor as if in agreement, and she leans in, nudging Tom's shoulder with a gentle push of her muzzle. John's heart softens at the scene. John, sighing, says, "All right, let's see what adventures await tonight." Tom's eyes light up, a spark that John has come to cherish. As John reads, his voice slow and deep, Tom's head begins to tilt, eyelids drooping as he is lulled by the steady cadence. Luna watches him intently, her body a steady weight of comfort against the boy's side, a guardian even in rest. Tom, small and tentative, asks, "John, do you think Mum will like the drawing I made today?" John replies, "I think she'll love it, Tom. We'll send it with the next letter, just like the others." Tom nods, eyes brightening for a moment before a shadow of thought dims them again. Tom says, "Can you read the letter again? The last one." John reaches for the envelope on the small table, the paper creased and worn from being folded and unfolded. John reads, "Dear Tom, my little star, I think of you every morning when the light first touches my window. I feel stronger each day, and soon, very soon, we will be together again. Until then, be brave for me. I know you have John and Luna there to keep you safe." Tom's eyes glisten, and for a moment silence wraps around them, profound and still. "Living room, night," Tom whispered. "Tom, thank you, Dad." The simple word Dad hung in the air, transforming the room. John's throat tightened and he found himself nodding, unable to speak. Luna lifted her head, eyes flicking between the boy and John as if she could sense the gravity of that moment. Her tail thumped softly, a gentle rhythm of approval. "John." "You're welcome, Tom," John finally managed, voice hoarse. He reached out, brushing the boy's hair with a tender hand. "John. Always." Outside, the wind settled and the first stars began to pierce the deepening sky, silent witnesses to a bond that had grown under the quiet care of a man, a boy, and a dog who knew more than words could say. The gentle hum of fluorescent lights buzzed through the quiet halls of Seattle General. Sunlight filtered through the slatted blinds, casting narrow strips of warmth across the sterile white walls. Jennifer sat by the window, her fingers nervously brushing against the fabric of her hospital gown. A small smile ghosted her lips as she watched a child skip past, his laughter a burst of life in the chilled air. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Dr. Harrow entered, his face gentle with the practiced composure of someone who delivered news daily. He adjusted his glasses and looked at Jennifer with a warmth that spoke more than the clinical notes on his clipboard. "Dr. Harrow, Jennifer, your progress has been remarkable. I think you're ready to go home." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. Jennifer's eyes widened, filling with the shimmer of hope that had long been absent. Jennifer, hope, home. The word felt foreign, almost fragile. She imagined Tom's wide, innocent eyes, and the thought of holding him again made her chest tighten, not with fear this time, but with something achingly familiar. Jennifer. Joy. 2 miles away, John leaned against the kitchen counter, mug of coffee in hand. The steam curled upward, dissipating into the cool air as he stared out at the yard where Tom played under the vigilant watch of Luna. The Labrador's golden coat glistened in the sun as she bounded toward Tom, ears flapping with each leap. Tom's giggle rose clear and bright, tugging a bittersweet smile from John. The phone buzzed on the counter, jarring him from the moment. It was the call he had been half dreading, half longing for. He picked it up, fingers trembling slightly as he heard Jennifer's voice. "Jennifer, VO. John," she said, her tone softer now, a mixture of gratitude and hesitation. "Jennifer, VO. They're letting me come home tomorrow." John took a deep breath, letting her words wash over him, relief intertwined with an ache he couldn't quite name. "John, that's wonderful, Jennifer." There was a pause, as if the line itself carried their mutual trepidation. Finally, she spoke. "Jennifer, VO. Thank you, John, for everything." John swallowed the sudden tightness in his throat. "John, it's been an honor, really." He glanced at Luna, who had wandered over, sensing the shift in his mood. She nuzzled his leg, her warm eyes mirroring the unspoken bond they shared. "John, we'll be ready for you." That night, the house hummed with a strange tension. Tom lay curled in his bed, breathing softly as the moonlight painted patterns across his sleeping face. John sat by the doorway, watching him, the small rise and fall of the boy's chest an anchor to his restless thoughts. Luna settled at John's feet, her gaze shifting between the sleeping child and her master, a silent sentry. "John, you know, girl," John whispered, reaching down to scratch behind Luna's ears. "John, tomorrow everything changes again." She let out a low, gentle whine, pressing her head into his touch as if to reassure him. John chuckled, the sound hollow. "John, yeah, I'm not ready either." Luna's eyes met his, deep pools of understanding that seemed to say, "We'll face it together." The morning sun crept over the horizon, washing the street with gold as John and Luna stood by the window, watching the driveway. The rumble of an approaching car broke the silence, and Tom's sleepy eyes widened when he spotted Jennifer stepping out. The door swung open before John could reach it. Tom bolted past him, running full tilt into his mother's outstretched arms. "Oh, Tom!" Jennifer's voice broke, tears streaking down her cheeks as she cradled him. The embrace tightened, years of lost moments compressing into a single heartbeat. John stood back, watching the scene unfold, a soft smile playing at the corner of his lips. Luna trotted forward, tail wagging as she gently nudged Jennifer's leg. Jennifer laughed through her tears, bending to stroke the dog that had been Tom's steadfast companion. "Hello, Luna," she whispered, voice trembling. The dog's eyes shone, a silent guardian welcoming back a long-lost member of the pack. John swallowed hard, a lump forming that he couldn't quite dislodge. His gaze drifted to Luna, who sat alert, her eyes bright and tail wagging in steady, soft beats. She moved closer, pressing her warm body against Jennifer's leg, as if adding her silent reassurance to the reunion. Jennifer looked up, her eyes meeting John's. The gratitude there was raw, unguarded. "John, thank you," she whispered, barely more than a breath, but it resonated deeply in the quiet room. "It was nothing," John replied, though they both knew it was more than that. The weeks of sleepless nights, the early mornings spent reassuring a frightened Tom, the moments when Luna would lie beside the boy offering comfort only she knew how. Those memories flickered between them, unspoken. Tom's small hand reached out, fingers brushing Luna's fur. "Luna," he said softly. The dog leaned into his touch, eyes closing briefly as if savoring the simple contact. The weight of that moment settled into John's chest, bittersweet and warm. Jennifer stood up, still holding Tom's hand. "I hope we can stay connected," her voice wavering, but the strength in her voice was a testament to her recovery. John could see the hint of vulnerability there, the thread of fear that any parent might feel when reclaiming what was almost lost. "We will," John's own voice resolute. He reached down, scratching Luna behind the ears. "We're not going anywhere." A stillness followed, one steeped in quiet understanding. Tom nestled into Jennifer's side, a sleepy smile curving his lips as Luna settled at his feet, her warm presence a grounding force. The weight in John's chest lifted, replaced by a sense of completeness, an anchor in this newfound harmony. In the days that followed, the soft knock at John's door became familiar. Jennifer and Tom would visit often, laughter mingling with the gentle thumping of Luna's tail as she greeted them. Each visit mended the frayed edges of their lives, stitching them together with shared stories, quiet afternoons, and the simple joy of a family slowly coming to be. And though the future was unwritten, it was bright, threaded with love, resilience, and the soft shadow of Luna's loyal, watchful eyes. The golden hues of autumn crept slowly into the streets of Seattle, painting the city with a nostalgic glow. The crisp air carried a delicate hint of pine, mixing with the distant hum of traffic. John's clinic, nestled on a quiet corner surrounded by towering maple trees, had become a gathering place for stories, hope, and quiet resilience. The large bay window reflected an afternoon sky that shifted between cloud and sunshine, casting warm patches of light onto the worn wooden floors inside. Luna, the ever-attentive Labrador with her sleek, caramel-colored coat and eyes as deep as honey, lay in her usual spot by the window. Her ears twitched at the faint sounds of laughter from outside. Tom, his cherubic face flushed with excitement, was playing with a wooden toy train on the floor, its rhythmic clatter filling the room. Jennifer stood near the door, holding a pamphlet that detailed their upcoming community event. Her fingers traced the edges absently as she watched. Tom, a soft smile curving her lips. The years had softened the harsh lines of worry that once etched her face, replaced now by the tentative peace that John had helped nurture. Her eyes met John's as he emerged from the small back room, wiping his hands clean of antiseptic. He walked over to the window where Luna now rested her head on his knee, eyes closing briefly as he scratched behind her ears. Jennifer took a step closer, her fingers brushing against John's arm, a touch that had grown familiar over the months. "It's hard to believe how far we've come," she said, her voice tinged with awe. John looked at her, the lines on his face deepening as a smile spread. "We've built something here, haven't we? It's more than just a clinic now, it's home." Jennifer's eyes misted slightly, but she blinked the emotion away, her gaze drifting to Tom, who was now pulling Luna's tail playfully. The dog, ever patient, merely wagged her tail in response, thumping it against the floor like a gentle drum. "John, I was thinking," Jennifer started, a tentative edge in her tone. "We should share more of what we've learned and what Luna's done. These events could be more than just one-time stories." He nodded, sensing the passion building in her words. "I agree. People need to hear what Alzheimer's does, not just to those diagnosed, but to the ones who love them. And Luna's story, it gives hope, shows what loyalty can mean." Jennifer reached into her bag and pulled out a draft of the speech she had been working on. "I've been putting my thoughts together for the next outreach event," she said, handing it to John. The room seemed to brighten as he read. Her words were raw, honest, and carried the weight of experience. They spoke not just of suffering, but of rebuilding, of love found in unexpected places. He looked up, the ache of past years giving way to a tender resolve. "These are powerful, Jennifer. It's exactly what people need," John said, his voice filled with admiration. A small hand tugged at John's sleeve, and Tom looked up with bright eyes. "Can Luna come to the park today?" he asked, hope lighting his features. John exchanged a look with Jennifer and laughed softly. "Of course, Tom. Luna wouldn't miss it for the world." As they stepped outside into the glowing afternoon, Jennifer's hand found John's. He squeezed it gently, and Luna walked beside them, her tail swaying in a steady, contented rhythm. They moved as one, a family stitched together by shared trials and newfound love. The city around them watched as if bearing witness, leaves swirling in quiet applause and the sun breaking through clouds, casting a golden path before them. The morning sun cast a warm glow across the soft emerald grass of the community park, a place that had become a second home to John, Jennifer, Tom, and Luna. The early birds' cheerful chirps harmonized with the distant laughter of children, weaving a delicate symphony that spoke of renewal. John watched as Luna, with her sleek coat glistening in the dappled sunlight, trotted alongside Tom, her tail wagging rhythmically like a metronome marking time in perfect contentment. The sight sent a quiet tremor of gratitude through his chest. Jennifer's laughter rippled like a gentle breeze, catching John's attention. She stood not far, her hair catching in the wind, eyes shining as Tom clutched her hand tightly, eager to show her the tricks Luna had been mastering. It was moments like these that made the pain of the past feel like a distant, fading echo. Yet deep down, John knew that these memories formed the foundation upon which their new life was built, stronger, more resilient, and grounded in the raw truths they had endured. "Look, Mum! Luna can jump through the hoop!" Tom's voice, small yet bursting with pride, rang out, pulling a smile from Jennifer's lips. "I see, sweetheart. That's incredible," she called back, clapping her hands, the sparkle in her eyes undeniable. John couldn't help but feel the pull at his heart, a quiet reminder of how far they all had come. He stepped closer, his arm brushing against Jennifer's. She met his gaze, and in that unspoken moment, shared everything without uttering a word. The past, the ache, the love that had blossomed through their trials. All was there. Luna, never one to let a moment pass without her due, barked playfully and performed a graceful leap through the hoop Tom held aloft. Cheers erupted from nearby families who had gathered, some pausing their own activities to admire the Labrador's effortless skill. Luna landed with a flourish, tail sweeping in wide arcs as she looked to Tom for approval. The boy's face was aglow, eyes bright with admiration. John dropped to a knee beside Tom and Luna, scratching behind her ears. "Good girl, Luna," he whispered. The dog's expressive eyes, one a deep chocolate brown, the other a striking blue, gazed at him with an intensity that spoke of loyalty and understanding. She was more than just a pet. She was a silent guardian, a constant in their ever-evolving life. As the afternoon unfolded, John found himself beside Jennifer, watching Tom and Luna chase each other across the open field. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. Jennifer leaned into him, the subtle scent of lavender in her hair as comforting as the embrace that followed. "Hard to believe how much has changed, isn't it?" Her voice was soft, tinged with wonder. John nodded, the emotions swelling in his throat. "Yeah, it is. I never thought after everything that we'd find this." He gestured at Tom and Luna, laughter ringing out like bells. A new start. Jennifer's fingers intertwined with his, warm and steady. "And it's just the beginning," she whispered, pressing a hand to her belly. John's eyes widened as understanding dawned, the realization hitting him with the weight of 1,000 unspoken dreams. "You mean?" His voice cracked, eyes misting as he turned to face her. She nodded, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. "Yes, John. We're going to have a baby." The world seemed to pause, every sound muted as the weight of her words sank in. Luna barked in the distance, as if sensing the gravity of the moment, trotting over to push her warm muzzle against John's leg. He reached down, fingers brushing over the soft fur that had been a constant comfort through it all. He glanced from Jennifer to Tom, and finally to Luna, a smile spreading across his face, a smile that spoke of hope, redemption, and the boundless possibilities that lay ahead. This was it. The family he thought he'd lost was now complete, with a new chapter yet to be written. Thank you so much for joining me on this heartfelt journey. The story of them is a reminder that love, resilience, and loyalty can overcome the toughest battles life throws our way. It's a testament to how bonds formed through shared trials can turn into a foundation for new beginnings. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with friends and family who need a little hope today. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next inspiring story. Let's continue to spread stories that lift us up and remind us of the strength within us all. Until next time, take care and cherish those who walk beside you, whether they have 2 legs or 4. Stay tuned for more stories that touch the heart. Tom bolted past him, running full tilt into his mother's outstretched arms. "Oh, Tom!" Jennifer's voice broke, tears streaking down her cheeks as she cradled him. The embrace tightened, years of lost moments compressing into a single heartbeat. John stood back, watching the scene unfold, a soft smile playing at the corner of his lips. Luna trotted forward, tail wagging as she gently nudged Jennifer's leg. Jennifer laughed through her tears, bending to stroke the dog that had been Tom's steadfast companion. "Hello, Luna," she whispered, voice trembling. The dog's eyes shone, a silent guardian welcoming back a long-lost member of the pack. John swallowed hard, a lump forming that he couldn't quite dislodge. His gaze drifted to Luna, who sat alert, her eyes bright and tail wagging in steady, soft beats. She moved closer, pressing her warm body against Jennifer's leg as if adding her silent reassurance to the reunion. Jennifer looked up, her eyes meeting John's. The gratitude there was raw, unguarded. "John, thank you," she whispered, barely more than a breath, but it resonated deeply in the quiet room. "It was nothing," John replied, though they both knew it was more than that. The weeks of sleepless nights, the early mornings spent reassuring a frightened Tom, the moments when Luna would lie beside the boy offering comfort only she knew how. Those memories flickered between them, unspoken. Tom's small hand reached out, fingers brushing Luna's fur. "Luna," he said softly. The dog leaned into his touch, eyes closing briefly as if savoring the simple contact. The weight of that moment settled into John's chest, bittersweet and warm. Jennifer stood up, still holding Tom's hand. "I hope we can stay connected," her voice wavering, but the strength in her voice was a testament to her recovery. John could see the hint of vulnerability there, the thread of fear that any parent might feel when reclaiming what was almost lost. "We will," John's own voice resolute. He reached down, scratching Luna behind the ears. "We're not going anywhere." A stillness followed, one steeped in quiet understanding. Tom nestled into Jennifer's side, a sleepy smile curving his lips as Luna settled at his feet, her warm presence a grounding force. The weight in John's chest lifted, replaced by a sense of completeness, an anchor in this newfound harmony. In the days that followed, the soft knock at John's door became familiar. Jennifer and Tom would visit often, laughter mingling with the gentle thumping of Luna's tail as she greeted them. Each visit mended the frayed edges of their lives, stitching them together with shared stories, quiet afternoons, and the simple joy of a family slowly coming to be. And though the future was unwritten, it was bright, threaded with love, resilience, and the soft shadow of Luna's loyal, watchful eyes. The golden hues of autumn crept slowly into the streets of Seattle, painting the city with a nostalgic glow. The crisp air carried a delicate hint of pine, mixing with the distant hum of traffic. John's clinic, nestled on a quiet corner surrounded by towering maple trees, had become a gathering place for stories, hope, and quiet resilience. The large bay window reflected an afternoon sky that shifted between cloud and sunshine, casting warm patches of light onto the worn wooden floors inside. Luna, the ever-attentive Labrador with her sleek caramel-colored coat and eyes as deep as honey, lay in her usual spot by the window. Her ears twitched at the faint sounds of laughter from outside. Tom, his cherubic face flushed with excitement, was playing with a wooden toy train on the floor, its rhythmic clatter filling the room. Jennifer stood near the door, holding a pamphlet that detailed their upcoming community event. Her fingers traced the edges absently as she watched,